Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Richard, and this is Contra Talk, the podcast where we talk about things that matter. And we're talking with a new friend. I met him in the last month or two, Derin Stidd. He's a pastor, husband, and a father of 9. He's currently working in politics. He's actually stepped away from the pastorate, similar story to me in some regard, and currently working as a lobbyist, although I think he's a good lobbyist, although I've only known him about a month and a half, so we'll see. But he also works for a ministry called Operation Save America, which is basically a very uh, more than pro-life in the sense of abolitionist. And they have conferences and events and trainings. They're not just kind of build up and fill up your cup and never be utilized, but rather poured out. And this conversation, we discuss that ministry, some interesting, fun stories that have to do with that and what they've experienced, but also just the overall reasons for acting as a Christian in a broken, twisted, and perverse generation that we're in. It's easy to kind of be in a book and think you'll go do this or that, but then never apply it. Well, we're talking about applying it at least in part, and kind of how to do that, and how to at least go on the road to doing that, and other such things of that. So it's a good conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Derin Stidd, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Feel a little rushed, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't know that we were going to pull this off, but
I know we tried a couple different times. Well, I know we've met recently, and I wanted to just kind of have you on, talk about Operation Save America specifically. But before we get there, just kind of tell us who you are, your husband and a father. You got a bunch of kids, what you've been doing, what you're doing now, and we'll get into Operation Save America as well.
Yeah. So, appreciate you having me on the show. I'm excited to have the opportunity to be here. So, you said I'm a husband. My wife Katrina and I have been married for 21 years. It's always a dangerous thing for me to say that number because I'm usually off a little bit somewhere. I think it's 21 years.
Just remember the year, and then you're good.
That's
And we
right.
can do
Yeah,
the
but
math.
then I have to do math. See, the whole reason I became a pastor was so I wouldn't have to do math. Yeah. So we got married in 2003. So the math on that would be 21 years, right? Yeah. So yes, we've been married for 21 years. We have 9 children. So the Lord has tremendously blessed us. Our oldest is 21. My oldest two are out living on their own now. My second oldest is married. My oldest is living on his own. So the Lord has tremendously blessed us in that way. They're both walking with the Lord. Um, and then, we still have 7 at home. And so every day is an adventure around here. By the way, I'll just warn people that are listening, if it sounds like there's an exorcism happening in the background at my house, that's just one of my kids running around doing something crazy out there. So yeah, that's a little bit about my family. And then I've been a pastor for let's see, probably 20 years, 15 years. I don't know. I mean, that requires math too.
Right.
Started out in
Yeah.
youth ministry a long time ago, when that was still a big thing in the church, and the Lord kind of directed us away from that. I was pastoring a church in North Central Indiana called Harmony Baptist Church. Still good, godly people. Love the people there. And recently, we were there for 6 years. And recently, the Lord transitioned us out of that and moved us to Ohio. And so that's where you and I met. We go to Pastor Michael Clary's church, Christ the King Church, which is an awesome church, and we're excited to have the opportunity to plug in there. And so we've been there for about 3 or 4 months now, and but taking a break from full time ministry. And so I work with an organization called Young Americans for Liberty. It's a full time political activist. So that's kind of a little bit about where we're at right now. I didn't really include anything about Operation Save America in that, but I'm happy to share details about how I got involved and what that organization's about and all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear predominantly about OSA, if you will, but also Young Americans for Liberty, right? You just said that's what
Yeah.
your main job is. Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
that, because I know Christian nationalism has waned a little bit as far as being a sizzly hot button topic.
Yeah.
I think it's still well, it's something that has a million definitions.
Yeah.
But, generally, Christians, I think, should be engaged in public discourse and certainly the political process. But we've been told, I think a lot of lies or just half truths, if you will, about it, kind of this very pietistic understanding and a lot of other things. And well, that's dirty and we shouldn't do that. And maybe some pastors don't necessarily say those things, but it certainly comes across as such, right? And
Yeah.
it's just something that we think, nah, I don't really want to. Politicians are gross. And it's like, well, like a lawyer, you don't have to be slimy. You don't have. What about the law? What about justice? What about these things regarding being a lawyer, being an attorney? Same thing with a politician. I mean, you don't have to be a sleazeball. You don't have to embezzle money. You don't have to take
Yeah.
bribes. Most of them do, but we
Right.
don't have to, right?
Yeah.
And so, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do? You're not a politician, but you
Right.
talk to politicians. You go to the capitals, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and just tell us a little bit about that. And we'll get to OSA as well.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, the first thing about what you said there is generally true. Politicians are gross. That's a true statement. I was getting ready to go to the Capitol here in Ohio, Columbus, a couple weeks ago. The night before I went, I was just kind of dreading it. My wife asked me, she said, "Why do you hate going to the Capitol so much?" I said, there's all these people there that are liars and thieves, and they've traded their humanity for the sake of their own, ambition. And just to, and then, on top of that, you also have to deal with the Democrats. Um, and, you know,
Even worse, the worst kind of politician.
that's right. Yeah, right. Those are the good ones. So there are some good people. There are some good, godly men and women that are involved in politics, though, and I do praise God for them. We do have some here in Ohio that are really genuinely good people. And it's a challenge for them to be in places like Columbus. I also work in West Virginia. There's some good people there.
Mhm.
Kentucky's not one of my states, but I know several
Oh, okay.
legislators there. But it's a challenge because there is a lot of the things that we think about when we think of politics. There are truisms there. There's a lot of lying that happens. There's a lot of trading. You always think people think politicians. They got involved in politics for the greater good. That's what everybody always thinks about politicians. And you get to know politicians, and it's like, no, they have ambition. That's why they got involved in politics. And a lot of times they sacrifice their humanity for their ambition. Maybe they started out as a genuine conservative and then they got, to the Capitol and, they sacrificed their humanity to their ambition. They forgot their principles. And now the only thing that they care about is keeping their butt in that seat. And so everything in their life just revolves around doing whatever they need to do to stay elected or to move to higher office. And so it's a challenging thing. But the reality is, God has called Christians to engage the culture. And we can't shrink back from being involved in that realm because it's an ugly or a challenging realm to be involved in. It's not been that long ago that Christians were one of the greatest influencing forces in politics in the United States of America. And one of the ways that we lost the influence that we had is in the 1950s and 60s. And then moving forward from there was sort of the abandonment of the civil realm. And you talked about pietism a minute ago, the abandonment of the civil realm and the idea that Christians should really just focus on the spiritual. And there's this sort of this, I would call it this sort of, I think pietism is a good word for it. It's sort of this platonic, kind of, you know, we care about the spiritual, not the physical.
Right.
And, that's a big problem because God has called us to do some things in this world.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I got involved in politics through the life issue. That's how I got involved with Operation Save America. And then through that, I got involved in Second Amendment fights and tax fights and school choice fights and things like that. And that's kind of how I ended up in full time politics. But the reality is, every Christian, as a citizen of this nation, has a duty to be directly involved with lobbying their legislators, both at the state and federal level, calling upon them to establish laws that are good and just and upright for the common good of the people in our country. And so that's kind of how I got involved in politics.
Hey, it's me from the thing you're currently watching. Crazy, huh? So, if you're liking this or disliking this, like or dislike it. And if you want to get more content, the easy way to do that is subscribe and do that notification. This is something when you sign up for YouTube, you have to say, you agree to say it. No, you really don't. But if you do want that and like and do the whole thing, that'd be helpful for me. And also helpful for you because then you'll get to know about stuff more easily. So anyway, back to the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's
Yeah.
good. So you do that full time. You were pastoring before this for a number of years. What tell us just about Operation Save America? I mean, I guess in one sense, it's like, is America even worth saving?
Right.
Some people would say, of course. Well, yeah, of course. But it's more than just quote unquote saving America. What do you guys do exactly, and who are you affiliated
Yeah.
with? Who are the some other people or types of people that are also um, affiliated with this group?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just realized I didn't fully answer your last question about Young Americans for Liberty. So that was how I got involved in politics. So Young Americans for Liberty used to be students for Ron Paul. And so Jeff Frazier, the guy who's the CEO at Young Americans for Liberty, started Students for Ron Paul. And
Hmm.
he's just a very brilliant, visionary thinking guy. And he built this giant coalition of college students that want to stand for things like liberty, freedom and right to bear arms, school choice. One of our big fights that we're getting ready to kick off in West Virginia is, there's governments there that have put cameras in retail establishments and at intersections to surveil the people without due process. And so these are the kind of things that Young Americans for Liberty gets involved with. And I love every minute of it. I enjoy getting involved in those fights and have the opportunity to stand for the principles of liberty and justice. So YAL is a broad organization that's sort of libertarian minded, very heavily focused on
Hmm.
liberty issues. And so that's YAL, Young Americans for Liberty. And then Operation Save America is a very narrowly focused, in some sense, organization, although not entirely. So I kind of get to have my feet in both worlds, or get a foot in both worlds. So yeah, Operation Save America is more of a ministry, and so what we do, Operation Save America, is it's sort of it's a multi pronged approach to dealing with the issue of child sacrifice in our land. And so Operation Save America started out, and it's got its roots in the rescue movement. I don't know how familiar you are with the rescue movement,
Rescue
but
movement. No, elaborate on that.
yeah, yeah. So in the 80s and 90s, this was sort of how the Protestant, in the beginning, the pro-life movement was predominantly Catholic, and the rescue movement is a big was a big inroad to the fight for the preborn for Protestants. And so what was happening in the 80s and 90s is Christians would actually go and stand in front of the doorway of abortion clinics, and they would literally lock arms and keep people from going into the abortion clinic to kill their baby. And so that's called the rescue movement. They would go and they would get arrested, and they would be charged with whatever misdemeanor offense, and then they would be released, or they'd spend some time in jail, county jail or whatever. Well,
Yeah.
then in 1993, Bill Clinton signed the FACE Act, which is basically the Federal Access to Abortion Act, I think is what it is. I don't remember what FACE stands for, but basically what it does is, if you block the doorway of an abortion clinic, now rather than facing a local charge for trespassing or whatever, now you face a federal charge, up to 1 year in federal prison and up to $100,000 fine. So if you go, Richard, and you stand in the doorway of a Walmart and you do a sit-in protest, or a CVS or a Kroger or whatever, fill in the blank with any place you want, you're going to get carried off to jail. You probably won't even spend the night. They're probably not even
Yeah.
going to book you. They'll send you home. You'll stand before a judge. The only place in the world where you're going to face federal charges for trespassing is an abortion clinic. And the reason that that's the case is because what these people were doing is they were disrupting the religious system of our nation. Child sacrifice, abortion, the
Right.
shedding of innocent blood, is a sacrament of the religious system of our nation. The
Mm.
murder of innocent children, it is the sacrifice to self, the God of self, and the exaltation of self. And so that's where Operation Save America got its roots. And so then, when the FACE Act passed, there was a transition that happened, and the focal point became more let's minister the gospel to women on the sidewalks, and let's speak up on behalf of the preborn on the sidewalks
Hmm.
in front of abortion clinics, and let's make an appeal to women and to mothers and fathers not to take the life of their babies, and let's offer them help and hope, and let's tell them about Jesus Christ in hopes that they'll turn from this decision to murder their babies. And so Rusty Thomas was the national director of Operation Save America when I got involved. They did a big event in Indiana. I'll tell you this, and I know I'm talking a long time here, but the
No, that's
thing,
why you're here. You're my guest.
no, I appreciate that. The thing that drew me into Operation Save America, I was already standing on the sidewalks appealing to women not to go through with their abortion. I was already involved in political lobbying around the issue of abortion. Um, and the thing that drew me into Operation Save America is at the time that I got involved, Operation Save America wasn't really involved in political lobbying. They were involved in trying to raise up godly men to be good fathers that lead in
Mhm.
the household, that love their wives, that want to have children. And they were involved in trying to help women that were in crisis pregnancy by providing for their needs. But the most important thing to me was that they were involved in bringing the gospel into the issue, which is oftentimes the thing that's left out of the pro life fight. The thing that
Yeah.
drew me to OSA is there were these older, godly men that were trying to train and mentor younger men to be godly husbands and fathers. And they were also making this issue of murdering innocent children a gospel issue, and bringing the gospel of Jesus Christ into conflict with this child sacrifice that's happening in our land. So that's what drew me into OSA. And so now OSA, so Jason Storms is the national director now. Rusty Thomas is retired. I'm the assistant national director. And essentially, we're involved. It's a multi-pronged approach. We do some political lobbying. We do a lot of training Christians to go to the abortion mill with the gospel. We do a lot of training Christians just to go to the streets, generally
Mhm.
speaking, with the gospel. And then we do a lot of discipleship and mentoring of young men and young families, trying to equip them with what they need to, have babies, raise godly children, and that sort of thing. And so it's kind of hard to pin down when you say, what does Operation Save America do? We kind of
Mhm.
have our hands on a lot of different things that we're trying to do, but all of it goes back to opposing this national sin in our land of shedding the blood of innocent children.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. Um, so what does that look like as far as, are there chapters? Is there several different groups if people want to get trained or get involved or volunteer? Or how does that work exactly?
So it's really interesting the way that Operation Save America works is that it doesn't have a lot of rigid structure to it. The way that I describe, and we're working on having more structure, but the way that I describe Operation Save America is it's kind of like the Minutemen of the pro-life movement.
Okay.
It's principled, so we oppose the slaughter of innocent children on its face, and we're not interested in making any compromises. We're not interested in advocating for half measures. We want the sacrifice of innocent children to stop, and we want it to stop right now.
Hmm.
And so any legislation we lobby for is along those lines. But it's not in terms of so very principled, but not particularly rigid. So we operate off the system of the older teaching the younger, and so you know essentially what we try to do is we try to work with local churches in a community. So we'll go into a community, we'll connect with the pastors there, we'll equip them with what they need to get involved in the battle. And then when people want to get involved, our desire is actually to refer them to local churches that are involved in the battle,
Hmm.
more so than trying to start our own chapters or anything like that. We believe that if there is going to ultimately be an end to child sacrifice, it's going to be because the Church of Jesus Christ rises up and opposes the evil. And so a lot of our work is not done like chapter. I don't have a problem with doing things that way. I think it's fine for people to do things that way, but our work is done primarily in and through the local church. And so we try to raise up churches and pastors and elders, equip them to start ministries in their church, provide them with resources. And then when a person says, hey, I'm in Ohio and I want to get involved in going to the sidewalk to speak up on behalf of the preborn, we say, hey, We know this great pastor. His name's Michael Cleary. Pastors a church called Christ the King Church. That would be a good place to plug in and find out. Or we know we know a good brother named Michael Foster. He's a good pastor, if you're in the Cincinnati area. And so that's kind of how we operate. We try to operate more in and through the local church than we do. And because of that, you don't have OSA local chapters or OSA state
Gotcha.
chapters or anything like that. What you have is you have Operation Save America discipling and equipping men in churches and in communities across the nation. That's kind of what we're trying to do.
So you all had an event a couple months ago. I remember Michael, I mentioned it, Michael Clary. It wasn't like the news there, like NBC and like some other stuff. It was like a pretty big event there at Christ the King. Is that right?
Yeah. So we did. Yeah, we
So was
did.
that one of those kind of like training things or like a rally or like kind of flesh that out? Like what happened there? When was
Yeah,
that? Like September, August, something like that?
yeah. I think it was. That one's been actually a while ago because we were fighting the resolution,
Oh, okay.
the amendment. It was last year.
Oh,
It
okay.
all runs
Wasn't there one
together.
recently though too?
We did do something recently there. Jeff Durbin came to town,
Right.
and we met with some local activists and did some equipping. That was really kind of a training event, and we were putting together a plan with the
Gotcha.
local Christians in Ohio. Because Operation Save America, we don't operate in such a way that we're the ones that show up and you know, we're the people. Look to us. Do what we say. Instead, we're trying to equip the people that are already in Ohio, for example, to have the resources that they need to be able to engage in the battle with a plan and so forth based on the experience that we have. And so the event you're talking about, it was like a small gathering, and Pastor Michael was there, Jason Storms and I were there, um, and Jeff Durbin was there, a good brother here in Ohio named Austin Beigel was there, who runs a ministry called End Abortion Ohio. He's doing really, really good work. And then there were some brothers that came up from Kentucky. And that event was really just to equip them, those leaders, and to put together a plan to advance our legislation in Ohio and Kentucky. We also did a big event in Ohio last year to oppose the amendment, the abortion amendment here. And so what we do is we have a national event and then we have two regional events every year. The national event is the one time that we say, everybody come to this event. This year, like for example, we're going to be in South Carolina. So we say, everybody come to South Carolina in July. We're all going to get together. There's usually 500 or 600 people there. And we're going to take the gospel to the streets in South Carolina. We're going to have a big presence. And that event is sort of like gravity. It draws people in. It gives us an opportunity to get to know and train new people, get to know new pastors, get to know political activists and things like that. And so we do that. And then we do two sort of smaller local regional events every year, one in the fall, one in the spring. And those, again, those are like training events. So these are not, we don't do, I know this probably sounds like I'm all over the place here. Brain's not firing on all cylinders today.
No, it's
So
okay. I know you're
when
not
we,
feeling 100%, so I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
your time.
When Operation Save America does an event, like we don't do conferences. There's
I
conference
see.
aspects to what we do.
Okay.
So we have a evening worship rally where they'll be singing and there'll be 3 or 4 speakers. And so there's a conference element to it. But when we get together to do work. And so if you come to an OSA event, what you're going to see is in the daytime, you're going to have the opportunity to go to the streets with experienced Christians, whether it be men or women. They're probably going to have their families with them. And there are people that have had years of experience either ministering the gospel on the sidewalks or going to a college campus and preaching the gospel there, or just picking a street corner and ministering the gospel to people there. And you get an opportunity to see seasoned Christians show you what it looks like to be involved. And then we're going to say, now you get on the microphone and you preach the gospel to the people that are passing by. You got a mom of 3 out there for the first time. You call out, you're a mom, you call out to the women that are going into the abortion clinic and
Mm.
appeal to them, let them know that we're here to help them, and appeal to them not to go through with the murder of their baby. And so what you get with an OSA event, whether it be the national event or one of the regional events, what you get is you get an opportunity to get plugged in on one of those ministry teams, and you'll really get your hands dirty in the work. And then same thing with political lobbying. If we go to the Capitol, it'll be somebody who has experience in political lobbying, and they'll say, "This is how you talk to legislators." And then you'll go, and you'll be with that person who has 10 years experience talking to legislators, and you get to see them and you'll get the opportunity to do it.
Mhm.
So that's how an OSA event operates. And then in the evenings, and you get the talks and the, that sort of thing. But Jason Storms and I, so Jason's the national director, we have a major conviction that there's a big problem in the church right now among the most faithful, that we are just glutting. We have a gluttony of content, and we're just glutting ourselves with content all the time. This conference and that conference and this podcast and that podcast and this book and that book. And they're like, I'm not against conferences. I go to conferences. I'm not against reading books. I love to read books. I'm not against podcasts. I'm on here. I enjoy your podcast, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to be on here. But our ministry is a little bit different than that, in that we want to say, let's take some of that stuff that you're learning, and now let's go to the streets and let's put it to work. So
Apply it.
that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're about.
Gotcha. Okay. I know. I mean, we could probably get into nitty gritty on any number of subjects you guys have dealt with, or other events or things you've gotten, stories, I'm sure. Um, what does this year look like, 2025 coming into it? Where are you guys going to be? And if somebody's thinking like, yeah, I really want to share the gospel more, but I don't know, or I feel so alone, or there's not a lot of opportunity to do that, or I really want to fight for life, and yeah, I'm an abolitionist. These things need to stop, but I don't know where to turn. What's your guys' calendar look like for OSA?
So we're still, I appreciate that question. We're still nailing down dates actually
Okay.
for our spring regional event. It's going to be in South Carolina though.
Okay.
So we know that if you follow us, Operation Save America, we have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter. Or I'm sorry, I'm still a bit of a boomer when it comes to.
X.
It's not Twitter, it's
Everybody
X.
calls it Twitter still,
Yeah,
though.
that's
So
right. Yeah, we have a Twitter. Yeah. So what do you call it when you post something on there now? It's not a tweet anymore now. What is it? It's a,
it, I
I don't
think it's
know.
just a post.
It's just
I
a
think
post. Yeah. See, I don't
I'm
know.
barely on there.
I have it, but I don't ever get on there. So,
Yeah,
um,
some guys live on there. I can't do it.
yeah,
It's too much.
yeah. I don't know how some of these guys. I don't know how they have enough time to sit around and argue on social media.
I don't know. Well, that's another show.
But yeah. So OSA has an X account. We have a Facebook account. We also have a website. So if you just search Operation Save America, you can find all that.
Okay.
Um, and so we're going to be in South Carolina, I know, in the spring and in the summer, but we don't have the dates nailed down yet. So I don't want to announce the dates until I get
Sure.
confirmation, because we're still working with the local folks there in South Carolina to figure out when's going to be the best time for us to come. But those two events will be huge opportunities to come and to learn. You got the conference speakers, and those draw people in. But my big thing to people when I'm making an appeal to them to come to an OSA event is come and plan to go out and do the ministry during the daytime. Get to know, like if you're a mom, okay, I don't know how many moms you have listening to your podcast, but let's say you're a mom, you're a homeschool mom, and
I
you
know my
think,
mom listens.
yeah, there you go.
And then my wife. So there's at
Right,
least
yeah. So there's at least two, right? So you say you got a mom, and you say, I got all these kids. How could I ever be involved in this type of ministry? If you come to Operation Save America, you'll have an opportunity to meet some other moms who are involved in this ministry, and they'll show you how they do it. If you're a man and let's say you've always wanted to be able to stand up and preach the gospel on the streets, but you just never knew how to get started. You want to know how to share the gospel with people as they're walking by, but you never knew how to get started. Or maybe you have gotten started, but you just want to come plug in with some guys that are doing it also,
Mhm.
that come and do the ministry. Come and be out during the daytime when we're out ministering the gospel to folks. If you're a pastor and you have a heart for the preborn, but you want to see what it looks like for Christians to faithfully engage on this issue, man, come. There's a ton of pastors that are going to be there. Come
Yeah.
find some other pastors that are there. And in addition to that, I would also say this is the often forgotten part of OSA, but it's very important, because in and through while all of that is happening, another thing is happening, which is, let's say you're a young father and you got maybe a couple kids, maybe just got one kid, maybe you got a couple kids. you're still trying to figure out how to be a godly husband, godly father. You're just getting things started. Or you're a young mom, and you're trying to figure out how do I submit to this imperfect man?
Hmm.
How do I take care of these sinful little children when I'm a sinner myself? And the thing about OSA is it's full of older godly men and older godly women that are truly of the Titus 2 cloth,
Mm.
that will, while all of this ministry is going on, alongside all of that, when you're in the trenches together, that will take you under their wing and say, here's what it looks like to do family worship. Here's what it looks like to love your wife when she's imperfect. Here's what it looks like to submit to your husband when he's imperfect. Here's what it looks like to raise your children in the discipline and instruction of the Lord.
Hmm.
And the thing that drew me into OSA is, to be honest, not a lot of people are doing that, to be honest, in the church. And we are desperately in need of that. But we're in need of learning those things in the context of doing other things, not
Yeah.
learning those things in the context of a classroom.
Mm.
And not that doing it in classroom is bad, there's value to that. But what you get with OSA is you get people that are doing it, and they're willing to come alongside you in your life and let you come with them in their life and kind of show you how to do it. So
Yeah. There's
definitely watch
overlap.
those
Yeah.
dates. What's that?
I said there's overlap. I think a
Yeah,
lot of times we learn things in isolation, right?
yeah,
Even if we're with people, quote unquote, but we're still isolated on that topic. It's like you only learn about, baking bread and that's it. Not about
yeah,
being in the kitchen or doing dishes or like any other number of how to saute onions, right? Or make breakfast. Like, oh, I just did bread. I got bread
yeah,
down really good. And it's like, well, how do I apply that? Like bread's
right.
great, but like how do I do these dishes? I don't know. You know, or
Yeah,
whatever. I mean, any other number of things that
yeah,
you could apply that for. So
yeah.
that's
I think
good.
that is so important. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. I had a conversation with my wife about it, where, like, so I have, one of the things I do for my job, I sit at this computer a lot and I write political copy and I put together ads and I figure out how to engage people to get them involved in whatever fight that we're fighting, to find the people that agree with us and mobilize them to take action. And that allows me to, like, listen to podcasts and stuff like that because I'm just sitting here. And every now and then I'll hear something, I'll be like, man, that's so great. I need to share that with Katrina. And then by the time it gets around to the end of the day and I get a chance to have a conversation with her or whatever, it's gone. And that great thing that I learned never comes into application in my life. Whereas it's a little bit different when it's like, and not to say that God hasn't used those types of moments to shape me as a Christian, but it's a little bit different when it's like, hey, we were at their house.
Mm,
Did you see how he handled it when his son was throwing a fit?
hmm.
Like, we were both there. Did you see the way he did that? Did you see how she managed to be doing, the various different things she was doing and yet still managing the household at the same time? Like, you
Hmm.
saw it with your eyes, we saw it together. You know what I mean? Those are the things that you don't get in a classroom. And I really got this, I really learned this way of thinking with Operation Save America because I went to Bible college, I went to seminary. You learn everything sitting in a classroom, when you do those things. But you know, how to be a godly man. You can read a book about it, as well you should. There's some good ones out there.
Hmm.
Um, but if you got a godly man who's willing to let you be part of his life, that's worth its weight in gold. You know,
Hmm.
that's what Jesus did. And I know maybe some people think I'm sounding a little woo-hooey on here, because we love our books and we love our conferences, and I love books and conferences too.
Yeah.
But what we're about is getting your hands dirty in other people's lives and bringing the gospel into the context of that relationship.
Yeah. No, that's good. Um, I remember, I just want to kind of land this plane, but I remember Michael Clary. He had mentioned, I guess it was when we were having a conversation, like after church, just recently in the last few weeks, that it was a rowdy bunch. What did he mean by that?
Yeah.
What, like, because I thought he said NBC was there. Was that the thing
Yeah.
last year, 2023?
Yeah.
The
The
news
news
there.
follows us. Various news organizations follow us pretty much everywhere that we go.
Okay.
Because Operation Save America is what we didn't talk as much about the things that the news follow us about. There's a lot to talk about,
Yeah.
but Operation Save America is the tip of the spear when it comes to the battle to end child sacrifice. And I don't say that to be self-righteous because I didn't do it. By the grace of God, I'm in the position that I'm in, and I'm thankful to have the opportunity to do the work that I do with OSA. But it
Mhm.
was men who came before me that really made that spear and drove it into the heart of the enemy. And I'm grateful for those men, Flip Benham, Rusty Thomas. But Operation Save America is really the tip of the spear when it comes to ending the slaughter of innocent children. And because of that, we do things that a lot of other pro-life groups, and I'm not there. Things like crisis pregnancy centers are very important things. They do very important work.
Mhm.
They provide for the needs of women that are in crisis pregnancy, and that's very valuable. Political organizations that lobby on behalf of the preborn do very important work. But the thing that Operation Save America does that really makes the pro-abortion movement, including the media and everybody that's associated with them, shaking their boots. And they really do. If you read the articles they've written about us, they're scared to death of us. It's like
As
a
they
bunch
should
of
be.
homeschool moms, and the homeschool dads. We show up and the police come with riot gear. It's like nobody's ever been assaulted by an
Yeah.
OSA volunteer, but they're scared to death of us. And the reason why they are is because we bring the gospel of Jesus Christ into
Mhm.
conflict with the evil, and we
Amen.
teach other Christians to do it too. So we mobilize the church to show up to the abortion clinic, to show up at the state house, and to get involved in the issue. And then the other thing we do is we bring other groups together into that mission. And so, OSA, we work with. There are some groups that we work with that nobody knows that we work with them because they're afraid to be known as, working with a crazy group like Operation Save America. And
Mhm.
then there's other groups, End Abortion Now, Apologia Church, Love Life, Abolish Abortion in Texas. These are our partners. You get dangerous. It's dangerous to start mentioning people by name because you always leave people out. But um, you know, Action for Life. These are our partners in the ministry, and we've built this coalition together. Not just OSA, but all of these people have built this coalition together. And the news follows what we do because when we show up, there's a whole coalition of people that rise up to oppose
Mhm.
the slaughter of innocent children. And they don't like it. They're afraid of it, but it gets lots of clicks because I'll give you an example of something like that. So we had our national event in Georgia, not last year. Last year was in Florida. It was year before last. We had our national event at Praise Mill Church in Georgia. Josh Bice and the brothers
Oh,
at
yeah.
G3, good, godly brothers. Really, really appreciate those guys. Um, and we had this panel of a lot of different people. There were like 8 guys on the panel. Panel was like an hour and a half long because it's all pastors, and
Mhm.
nobody, as I am right now, nobody knows when they're supposed to stop talking. And so I was moderating the panel. So I opened the panel by asking this question. So I said, I have my first question here. It's a very important question. I think it's really burning on the hearts and minds of lots of people in America. And here it is. Why do you all hate women? Now, so I asked that question. Everybody in the room laughs. It was clearly a
Yeah.
joke, whatever. That question was a headline in 7 major news organizations following that event, as though I was serious.
Yeah.
You come to the event,
So
you
they
meet
said
my
that
wife.
you asked that question?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely,
that's funny.
yes. If you Google
The
my name,
left cannot they don't have any
not
humor.
wrong.
The
That's
leftists
right. They
are
don't understand humor at
they're
all.
like children and children with that don't laugh, which is like the worst type of child,
Right?
really.
Yeah.
Because at least
The
kids have fun and there's joy in their eyes
Yes.
and in
That
their
no,
in
that
their
speaks to the
laughs.
point I was gonna come to. The funny thing is, the media shows up to our events because they're hoping to meet our wives. They're hoping to meet our children. And
Yeah.
they're hoping that when they meet these women and children, that they're gonna meet miserable women and children because they
Right.
have these, OSA is run by these mean, ogreish, patriarchal men, And they come and they meet our wives, and our wives are happy, joyful women. They come and they meet our children, and our children are happy, they're joyful, they're running around playing the whole time
Yeah.
that we're having the event. And they absolutely do not know what to do with that. they don't know what to do with it because they
Repent
don't
and believe.
understand the gospel and the power and the joy that the gospel of Jesus Christ brings in the lives of people. And so they just are constantly coming to our events. They send reporters, MSNBC, NBC, I can't think of, I mean, some of the liberal organizations, even more liberal than those organizations, have sent people.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera has sent people to our events, um, just hoping that they can find something, and they get to know us and they actually like us, and we become friends with them,
Yeah.
and our wives become friends with them because they just don't know what to do with the fact that these are actually, we're rowdy in the sense that we're going to go to the streets with the gospel. A lot of Christians are not used to that, and then we're going to sit around after it's over, and we got this is another interesting thing about OSA. We got Calvinists, we got Arminians, we got Charismatics, we got Reformed Baptists, we got, you know, all within the pale of Protestant orthodoxy. So we
Hmm.
got all these different groups, and they go out and they're in the trenches together with one another, and then they go to dinner afterwards and they sit around and argue about theology. And you don't pretend like you agree. It's the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's not like we're pretending like these things don't matter. We fight about them when it's appropriate to fight about them, but these news crews come and they watch all this happen and they just don't know. They don't
Mm.
know. They don't know what to do with it, and it's very entertaining. And really, all it is, it's just the grace of God working in and among His people, and they
Yeah.
don't know how to deal with it because they don't understand the grace of God.
No, it's true. Well, brother, this has been great. I think we could keep going, but like that's it sounds fantastic. Where can people where should they go if they want to get involved or just kind of check up on you guys, follow you on social media, stuff like that?
Yeah. So the most important thing, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share that. Most important thing is go to operationsaveamerica.org and make sure it's .org, not .com, because the pro board's got that one. So
Okay.
operationsaveamerica.org and sign up for our email list there. And then you can be plugged in and see. We got a young man named Merrick Kaiser who does awesome work keeping up with the email list and keeping people up to date about what we're doing. So if you want to know what's going on, sign up for our emails. We don't spam your email a lot. We send maybe one email a week. Um, and that'll keep you in the loop about what we're doing. That's number one. And then number two is follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. Jason and I don't run any of these accounts. We have young people that take care of all of that, but they do a really good job with it. And so you can find out what we have going on all of those different places.
Okay.
And then
Perfect.
you can follow me. I'm on Twitter.
I was just gonna ask.
I get on Twitter periodically. I go
Yeah.
in spells, so I am at Pastor Derin on Twitter. You're welcome to follow me. I'll follow back, unless you got some weird thing, and then I guess if if it looks to me like your account's like a hack account or a fake account, I'm not gonna. But generally speaking, I follow Christians back, so
Yeah.
you can follow me there. OSA has an account there. Jason Storms is another good guy to follow. And if you follow those three accounts, you pretty much be up to date on what we're doing.
Very good. Well, I appreciate the time, brother. Thank you so much. And
Yeah. Hey, thank you for having me.
yeah,
Not
absolutely.
everybody wants to let a crazy guy like me get on their podcast. So yeah, really appreciate that.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank
Derin Stidd. God bless.
you.
Hey, I hope you like that conversation with Derin Stidd. He's a guy who's doing the work. He's been a pastor. Like I said, he's stepped away from that. He's still doing full time. I would call it Christian ministry, both with Operation Save America as a director there, but also as a lobbyist, right? Seeking to lobby politicians as a Christian, not just as a Republican or not just as a citizen, but as a Christian, somebody who's wanting to live under Christ. This, like I said, this conversation is one of many that I've had with different people, various perspectives. And really, the goal of this channel ultimately is just to bring about Well, change, yes, but that's kind of generic. But to make you aware, the audience, of what's happening here or there, not in a newsy kind of way because it's flash in the pan and kind of annoying, but know that there are like-minded Christians, like-minded men and women out there that are doing the work. They're doing businesses, they're doing ministries, they're pastoring churches, they're trying to plant new seeds of growth and life in their children or their neighbors, or just living as unto the Lord, living as a believer in Christ, because it's so easy to get wrapped up and just consumed with the nonsense, right? Just completely, yeah, run down, beat up, run over, etc. So I hope this channel's helpful. Again, if you've made it this far, maybe you've already subscribed. But if you have not, or maybe you don't, it does help me out, at least in part, as far as getting to 1,000 subscribers. Past 1,000 doesn't really matter, but you can get the few little ads and few little things, and YouTube likes to do that, and that does help the channel out overall, and then would kick back that way to then produce more content. So, anyway, you'll take care. And the whole goal of this channel is the Latin phrase contra mundum pro mundo, which is against the world for the world. So be against the world for the world. See ya.